You're listening to the Bulldog Hour, getting you inside the Wilson football program with weekly game previews, recaps, highlights, and interviews. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Bulldog Hour. I'm one of your hosts, Joe Mays, and sitting next to me is my co-host, Justin Raffoff.
Yeah, it's good to be back, and the weekend was a positive note. I was going to say ended on a positive note, but Friday night's not the end of the weekend. So.
No, it's just the beginning, as everyone is very thankful for. But yes, Friday, positive. Saturday, positive. Football Sunday for us, not very good.
No, less than ideal
Yes.
on Sunday. But I said it to you.
Yes.
I would have signed up for this in a heartbeat on Friday afternoon if you would have told me that the team I pull for on Friday night would win, and the team I would pull for on Saturday night would win.
With you there.
In exchange for a loss that I kind of expected for the Eagles today. It's a little easier for me to take that, I think, than you. Our teams have different expectations this year. We've gone down that story on our other show.
Yeah.
But
Right.
also there's another big win on Friday night, and we want to get this in real quick. But
Yeah.
Columbia beat Lancaster Catholic.
Lots of offense or no defense to be be found.
Right.
What was it, 60 to 41?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And
That's a lot.
Robert Footman, I think, leads the LL League. Through 3 games. Well, I guess
4 games.
Through 4 games, I think he has like 13 touchdowns and like over 1,200 yards.
Yeah.
Like that.
Good for the Roll Tide.
Yeah.
This high school Roll Tide, local Roll Tide.
Sorry, I had to get that in. But yeah, Friday night was great. Saturday night was great. Sunday.
Today is forgettable, except for being on this show.
Except we're going to go back and talk about Friday.
We're going back in time. Yep, we're going to revisit Friday night. And, we were back at Gurski Stadium for the first time in a few weeks. And, opened up the season against Central Dauphin there, but then went on the road in Berks County 2 weeks in a row. Returned home, and I don't know if we've mentioned this on air. I know I've mentioned it to a variety of people, though. Wilson's not leaving Berks until October.
Yeah, I know. We've talked about it a bunch because we plan out like our road
who's
trips.
driving where and when.
And when we're stopping for food.
Yeah, where are we stopping for food? Who's meeting us there? But yeah, Wilson doesn't leave Berks County until October 1st, which is now rapidly approaching. It's less than 2 weeks away.
That's crazy because, well, just to think about how that works out, the season starts, essentially it didn't work out that way this year, but you start in August.
Mm-hmm.
So August.
To think
and the scrimmage was home.
Yeah.
So in August they didn't leave the county. In September they didn't leave the county.
But now once league play starts, you kind of have no choice but to head
because
outside
as of this year we are the only Berks team in LLD.
That changes next year.
It does.
But we're not looking at 2022 yet. We got plenty of 2021 to go. However, we're almost halfway.
Yeah.
This is game 5 this week.
I was intentionally not trying to jump up on like I did last week.
Yeah,
and got yelled at for.
Right, exactly. Well, I gotta let you know. We're not doing that.
Put me in my place.
That's right. Yes. So fantastic football Friday, stupendous football Saturday, bad football Sunday. But let's talk about Friday, because Friday was good. But I guess before we do that, let's do our normal stuff. The housekeeping. The Bulldog Hour is presented by Mays Sandwich Shop. We appreciate the support from my dad and the business, but they're not the only ones. We also want to thank CNS Supply Company, Andy Herr, and Marty Palm, and our 3 anonymous donors. And there's multiple ways that you can help us out here at the Bulldog Hour. In addition to sponsorships, advertising, those in-kind donations, make sure you visit bulldoghour.com And over the last week or so, I've been working on it in the evening during my spare time, and I've gotten a few additions to the history and heritage section put up there. Specifically, I went through and was able to complete the season recap of the 1985 team, and why that's important we'll talk about here in just a few moments. But one of the other big reasons or big ways to help us here is Justin's favorite.
Yeah, like and share. When you see stuff you like, or you think someone else might like, then spread the word. And also, I know this has come up on the last few shows about looking into some of that history. Like you said, BulldogHour.com is the place to go if you're looking for information on past Bulldog teams. Just because I know it's not all there, but
Not yet.
there's more there than anywhere else.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for information, that's the place.
There's a lot of information in the Wilson Football Tradition Club stats
Yes,
book
yes.
that started with Rich Romick and has been continued by Coach Doms, and that comes out every year. And those are available for free to Tradition Club members, or I think $5 for non-members. There's a lot of good information there, but it's not fully complete. There's not, I mean, obviously, because it would be really thick, there's not season by season recaps. There's not game results for every single game that Wilson has played. And that's what I'm working on BulldogHour.com, because it's a lot easier to put that stuff online than in print. So a lot of seasons are done. If you're a member of a team in Wilson's past, definitely want to check that out at BulldogHour.com. We'll be back in a week's time, next Sunday, September 26th, to talk about Game 5 and preview Game 6.
Wow, Game 5.
Right? And Friday night was a big one, not just because Wilson was returning to Gurski for the first time in a few weeks, but there were a lot of events going on, and one of the ones that is viewed to be the most fun is Youth Night. I know the players, especially the past players, let you know how important it is to hang out with the kids. That's kind of the beginning of the flag football camp that's done for the real little kids. Youth Night is also a way to check out Lincoln Park, Van Reed, West, and Southern middle school teams. They all wear their jerseys and they all line the field, and it's one of the cool events that I know everyone really has a really fun time. And I appreciate all the people taking pictures and video and tagging the Wilson football accounts in them. I was able to get some pictures as well, and you can check out my full photo album. I have a link on the social media sites. You can check that out and take a look at everything. But another successful youth night prior to the game against Martin Luther King. So that was pregame. During the game, at halftime, the Wilson Football Tradition Club welcomed back 3 championship teams to Gurski to honor anniversaries that they were celebrating of their titles. And of course, because of COVID, we missed out doing this last year, so we kind of grouped a few teams together this year. And we welcomed back players and coaches from the 1985, 1990, and 1996 championship teams. 85 and 96 won Lancaster-Lebanon League Section 1, and 1990 won District 3. And they're actually the only team, I believe, in Wilson history that didn't win the league but won a district title. And that's an interesting team. That's a team that is on BulldogHour.com. You can read all about that. They lost to McCaskey during the regular season, but smoked them in the playoffs to get a little bit of revenge.
That topic has come up a number of times, but with us, like talking about it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Would you rather win the regular season but lose the playoff, or would you rather?
Yeah.
You know,
it's usually a pretty easy.
It's a pretty easy.
Decision for
it's
us,
a pretty easy decision, I think. But the 1990 team came out in force. A lot of those guys came back, and it was great to see everyone. Probably the biggest name that came back was former coach Jerry Slemmer. Dr. Jerry Slemmer in the house came back. He was on the Mike Drago Sports podcast this past week. Sat down with Mike for over an hour. So if anyone hasn't listened to that or wants to listen to that, check out MikeDragosports.com. The podcast is completely free. You do not need to be a subscriber to download or listen to that. And Coach Jerry Slemmer talked with Mike about a variety of topics. Obviously, Wilson football was at the forefront of that discussion, but he was there to hang out with 3 of the teams that he coached to championships. And I believe his 1985 team was the first league championship that he won as head coach. So it was really fun to have him back. And there were many, many other coaches back as well. Dan Sukanik was back. Bill Morgan was back. Bill Hawes was back. I feel like I'm going to forget some. Coach Cavell was there. Paul Cavell was back. So it was a lot of fun to see many of those people. And I do want to thank the Wilson Football Tradition Club, the active members, Bear Aiello, Hallie Vaughn, Trevor Vaughn, and my dad, Bill Mays. They did a great job setting that up and running it while I was running around crazy before, during, and at halftime trying to get pictures and everything. So they did a great job at the tent, and I appreciate all of them and everything they've done to make sure this event runs smoothly and to fundraise so that we can pay for everything that we have to set up for the event. So again, thank you to Barry, Hallie, Trevor, and my dad for their efforts to bring back these championship teams. And obviously we're already thinking about next year, and that one is of particular interest to me because there's a 20-year milestone coming up that I think it's time to recognize a team that I was a part of. So
you're getting old.
You don't have to remind me of that. We all know it. We all know it. So, all right, Justin, here it is. Your favorite slide.
Yeah, the schedule.
The schedule, there it is.
And it's crazy.
It
we
is
are
crazy.
Quickly approaching the bottom of that first column.
So we are previewing that second to last game in the first column this Friday, Manheim Central at Gurski. We will talk about them, the Barons, at the end of the show, but they are off to a hot start. And after the way things went down last year on Halloween, I think they're going to be ready to come to West Lawn to battle with the Bulldogs. So we will talk about them very, very soon. But let's talk about Wilson's victory over the Martin Luther King Golden Cougars, coming to us from Philadelphia. And, I had a couple of people say to me that they found it very funny the way we didn't talk about MLK last week because we didn't have anything to say. And we were very honest about that there was very little to no information about MLK out there.
It's not as if we had information and just didn't want to present it. We presented all the information we had, which was very limited information about their game with Chester. And that was pretty much it. It was interesting. I know like the scheduling thing can get crazy. And we've talked about that, especially in years past where that has become an issue. But it was interesting, that's a hike.
Yeah.
That's a long ride on a bus. Not a fun ride on a bus.
When they got there, I don't know if they got there later, but their warm-ups were going for a while, and then Wilson's off the field, and they're just stretching, and it's time for the band to do the pregame performance, and we got to shuffle them off to Bulldog Field to finish their warm-ups, and things just didn't start great for them before the game even started, and then once the game started, things got even worse for the Cougars.
Right, yeah, and so it kind of is what it is, but from the Wilson standpoint, last week we kind of just talked about, it's a game where, all right, if we have limited information going in, maybe that wasn't the worst case scenario. Obviously, you don't want to be caught off guard, but at the same time, it was a chance to just focus on the things that we need to do, and try your best to just kind of control those things, and then let that be enough. And it was, which is great, because when you can just handle your business, things will work out. Now, it won't always work out the way it worked out on Friday night, where it was just a clear, decisive, large victory. But it's fun when it does work out that way. So, it was good to see. It was fun to see the kids seemingly have fun again, just kind of get out there and get that bad taste out of their mouth from the last few weeks.
Yeah, and things started out good for Wilson, entering the game pregame, getting back quarterback Brad Hoffman and wide receiver linebacker TJ Flight returned after missing the Exeter game last week with injuries. Now, there were still many Wilson players that were out with injuries or unable to play for other reasons, but they were confident in the game plan, and it worked out to a T. I mean, you can't really complain about a 50-8 victory. Both offense, defense, special teams, all getting the job done throughout the evening. here you're going to see the defensive touchdown scored by Nate Capitano.
Yeah,
And
big play there by Gannon Brubaker to knock that ball loose.
Yep.
He was right there. He was flying all over the place at safety on Friday night.
And he did. He caught up with me near the end of the game and then was reminiscing about a missed opportunity for what he thought would be a pick six. So never mind that final. I don't know why the final score is never right in these recaps, but those statistics tell a story. And while they're not exactly perfect on that huddle recap there, let's take a look at some of these because they are eye-opening.
Yeah.
Throughout the game.
Sometimes the statistics don't tell the whole story.
I'm pretty sure this one
pretty
does.
much do.
Yeah,
here,
I think this
so.
one does. So MLK had 2 first downs throughout the entire game, and I think they both came by penalty.
I think one was by penalty, and then I think they got credit. I think they got credit for one on the muff punt.
Okay.
I don't know that for sure.
Well, two first downs in a game is not going to do much for you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I see it there. I have that wrong then, obviously.
Wilson had 19 net yards rushing. Wilson 214. MLK minus 33. Now, a lot of those came because of sacks. I believe Wilson sacked the Cougars quarterbacks 5 times, resulting in a massive.
And I know there was
loss
at least one
yardage.
like really large sack. So it was one where the first guy didn't get the quarterback down, but he kind of kept trying to run. So
they threw for a total of 38 yards. So when you put those together, their total offensive yards were 5. Right. Now, I don't have individual game statistics dating back, to 1945, but I got to think that giving up a grand total of 5 yards to an opposing offense has to be up there.
I know there's been
10.
games where we've had it under 100, but
having it close to 0,
that's insane.
That's pretty crazy. So I know Wilson's known for their defense, so there's probably been games similar to this in the past, but 5 yards given up, just a complete domination by the Wilson defense for almost the entire game. They had 2 interceptions. They forced at least 1 fumble and returned that. They forced 2 fumbles. MLK only lost 1, but that one was returned by Nate Capitano for the touchdown. So, a pretty good showing. It was all around team effort.
Yeah, it was a good team effort.
Yeah, defensively, they had 4 guys with 2 solo tackles. A whole bunch of guys was contributing a single tackle. Lots of assists. Plenty of tackles for loss. They had 9.5 or 10. They had 10 tackles for loss. They had 2 forced fumbles, the fumble recovery, 2 interceptions, 2 pass breakups, and they had 5 total sacks with Flight, Fackler, Jackson Wagner, Nick Weitzel contributing 1, and then Dominic Memo and Brendan Hopp contributing a half sack each for them. So a total team effort on defense, and a lot can be said about the offense too in similar fashion. A lot of guys were contributing on the offensive side of the ball as well. Brad Hoffman had his best game through the air as quarterback for Wilson, completing 9 of 16 attempts for 172 yards and 3 scores. 3 of those balls were caught by Cam Jones for 72 yards and a touchdown. TJ Flight had 2 for 60 yards and a touchdown. Edison Case had his only catch of the game go for a 13-yard touchdown, and Spencer Tanga also 2 receptions for 18 yards. So spreading the ball around, using multiple guys out of the backfield as well. The main ball carrier was Jason Beckford, the senior. He got 14 carries for 89 yards. Didn't lose any. Actually, all of the backs didn't lose any yards rushing. Everything went for positive gain. Jason had a touchdown run as well. Amir Wellmacher and Spencer Tanga, Cam Jones, and then also Brad Hoffman all carrying the ball a few times for the Bulldogs, with Cam Jones and Brad Hoffman also scoring with their legs. So all around team effort, special teams getting the job done as well. Constantly in the backfield, harassing the punter from Martin Luther King. I believe there were 2 blocked or partially blocked punts. One of them was by Brady Klein, which
I think
resulted,
their first 2 punts.
Yeah, I think both. Yeah, I think you're right. I can't recall who got a piece of the first punt.
Yeah, it was hard to tell because a lot of people got close.
Yeah, and the second one was definitely Brady Klein, the freshman. I got a slightly blurry picture of him getting his hand on that one, but I believe both resulted in scores. Wilson went up, 23-0 by the end of the first quarter, with those final 2 points coming on a safety on another punt.
Yeah.
That one was credited to Landon Farrell, but again, there were, I think, 3 Bulldogs in there to attempt to block the punt and force MLK to make mistakes in the special teams game, which did happen. So, I mean, there were some moments that you're just left scratching your head or shaking your head. In the second quarter, Wilson struggled at the beginning of that to get things going and to attempt to put MLK away before halftime. Penalties, just mistakes, and that can't happen, especially when you're playing a good team, which Wilson played the first 3 weeks of the season, and you're gonna see this week. MLK wasn't up to the caliber of the other teams, and Wilson was able to do pretty much whatever they wanted throughout the game. Obviously, when the score's 50-0 with just a few minutes to play in the game, there aren't a lot of negatives to point out, but we know that the coaching staff wants them to focus on those mistakes, especially ones that popped up in the second quarter.
Yeah, and we talked to the players, and they kind of referenced some of that idea of focus and just kind of resetting. We'll let them talk about it in the interviews, but that is it's one of the things that came across, and you could see it at times. In the second quarter, I think, and we've seen this before in other seasons as well, where sometimes maybe like subconsciously it just becomes like that sense of urgency kind of starts to disappear a little bit when it starts to feel like the outcome is already determined. And the issue with that is it's still really early. There's still a lot of football left, and probably it was a 3-score game at that point still. It wasn't like it was second half running clock and everything is decided. While it felt like it was decided, there was still a long way to get to that point. So, that's something you just have to try and fight that urge to kind of let up a little bit. And it's not like that you think like, oh, we don't have to play hard. It's just, a slight lack of focus maybe here or there leads to some of those self-inflicted penalties and stuff like that.
Right. There were a variety of ways where we could go with our player of the game, and we were so deep into the talk with Paul Roberts last week, recapping the Exeter game and previewing Martin Luther King, that we completely blew past and forgot to do player of the game. So I did want to mention that our player of the game for last week for the loss at Exeter was Ryan McMillan. He was the big bright spot at the beginning of the game, catching a nice fourth down pass from Gannon Brubaker and converting that into a score. And then on the next Exeter series, while playing defense for the Bulldogs, McMillan picked up the ball and scored to extend Wilson's lead to 14-0. So both of Wilson's scores coming via sophomore Ryan McMillan. So he was the Bulldog Hour player of the game in week 3. But here after week 4, we're going to go with someone who probably could have been player of the game already this year, but we went in a different direction. But here he is popping up this week. Junior wide receiver defensive back Cam Jones contributed 2 scores and was once again very solid in the defensive backfield. 4 rushes, 26 yards and a score, 3 catches, 72 yards and a touchdown, and then the pass breakup. But he was an important part of the Wilson offense and defense. And after his contributions in the first month of the season, it's without a doubt that he deserves to be a player of the game somewhere in here. And we gave it to him this week after the victory against Martin Luther King.
Yeah, he's kind of been all over the place, but he stepped up in a role, a little heavier of an offensive role, and came through big, and that's what we needed. We needed guys to step up, and Cam certainly did that on Friday.
Yeah, so following the victory against Martin Luther King, Justin and I pulled aside 4 Wilson Bulldog players to discuss how they felt after the victory against MLK. Among them was Cam Jones, and we'll talk to him and 3 other Bulldogs right now. All right, we're post-game after Wilson's victory over Martin Luther King here with 4 of our Wilson football players. Guys, how good did that one feel?
Really good. Really awesome. Amazing.
Now, we heard from the coaches, Coach Doms in particular, that this was a particularly grueling week of practice. What were you guys doing differently after the past 2 defeats that you suffered? Were you refocused? Was there a higher intensity? What was practice like this last week?
Yeah, both of those definitely. Coach were more honest about messing up, missing the assignment block, dropping the passes, making us do up downs and stuff that we don't like doing, but obviously we're messing up, so we had no choice but to.
Definitely a lot more conditioning when it came with it. At the end, definitely we ran a lot more than usual, but also during the practice we would run more, even between sets and everything like that.
Practice was a lot more intense. Everything was live. It was full contact defense and offense. It was definitely different.
We just took practice differently this week. We wanted to make a statement this game. Had to come different.
So, Jason, you got to step up into a big role this week. You delivered in a big way, 14 carries, 89 yards, and a touchdown. How did it feel to be the lead guy in the backfield this week?
Everyone told me, they were like, this is your time. You gotta do what you do. And I was like, I'll be out there. So I had to put on.
How did it feel to get in the end zone?
It felt nice. I needed one.
And you got it. Part of a big scoring effort from you guys. It wasn't just offensively, though. We had a defensive touchdown. Did you learn that from your brother? Are you better at that than your brother?
I mean, to be honest, after that run, I would say I'm a better runner than him. But for the most part,
I like that.
I got to give it to Gannon, though, for him hitting the ball out of the guy's arms. I was scrambling for it. It took me about 3 tries to pick it up, and I was running. I was almost positive the ref was going to tackle me at one point. So I started running, and then that's when I got in the end zone. So it was definitely a fun event for that.
Yeah, everyone will focus on the 50 points. When you light up the scoreboard like that, you're going to win some games. But holding them for almost the entire game to nothing, and then scoring defensively also an extra amazing effort. You mentioned Gannon. I know he contributed. He popped that ball out for you, and you took it to the house. But then I believe just earlier he deflected a ball that he thought he should have, and it landed in your hands.
Gannon made a great play on the ball. He just didn't catch it, and it went right in my hand. So it's definitely Gannon should get half credit for that.
he asked if I got that one. I said, I'm sorry, I think I missed it. And he mentioned that it was the one that you got. And I said, you know what, I might have gotten that one. So, Cam, talk about your offensive game plan this week. Was one of the points of emphasis to get you the ball in your hands more?
Well, it was just more of everyone coming together this week, our line being in it more, them firing off the ball, which kind of opened up holes for me and the other backs as well. That's how Jason had a really nice game running. It was more Jason do the kind of the dirty work, him being inside a little bit. Me, it was more a little bit outside. It was me and TJ this week at practice, being outside catches and pitches and stuff like that. We're working them.
Yeah, you guys were able to get a few people back this week, so it must have felt good to have Brad Hoffman and TJ Flight, who was running like a madman on that early second half touchdown, outrunning people and then running people over. So contributions from everyone on the team. Which is the best way to win games. So congratulations, guys, on the victory, evening your record, and now you got a big showdown next week. Last non-league game with the Manheim Central Barons, and we know after last year they're going to be ready to go, and they've been on a roll so far this season. But congratulations again.
We'll be ready.
Yeah, we're going to be ready.
Sure.
We'll be ready.
And hopefully we'll get to talk to a few of you again next week.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, so that was our interview with the victorious Wilson football players following the game against Martin Luther King. And again, I mean, we have more to say about MLK this week than we did last week, but it's tough to find any silver linings for the Cougars. They were a little bit I don't want to say unprepared, because I don't know the way they were. They just seemed a little bit out of it.
Yeah, they seemed a little overwhelmed, and I think things kind of snowballed for them pretty quickly. With the game getting off to the start that it did, I think it just. Yeah, I talked about how with Wilson, kind of maybe losing that sense of urgency because of at the end of the first quarter, it seemed fairly clear how this game was going to go, and that may have happened on that side too. Again, needing that focus on every play. It's easy to say, it's hard to do, and it's hard to do at any level, let alone at the high school level. So, that might have contributed some to it. as well. I saw after the game, Coach Dom's talking to their coach.
Yeah, I believe
for
his
a long
name-
time after the game. Like
his name was it was Malik. I want to say Cooper, but I'm not sure that's right. But Coach Doms did talk with the Martin Luther
Right.
King head coach for a while
Right.
after the game. I don't pretend to know much about the Philly Public League or much about District 12
Right.
at all. I did find it humorous of all the comments I was getting on my photos, not from MLK at us,
Right.
from other Philly public school players and fans congratulating us for knocking Martin Luther King down like that. I don't know how much of a rivalry there is with those teams, but there were Cougar players or fans and other Philly Public League players and fans going at it in the comments on the Wilson Bulldog posts. You know, I'm gonna stay out of it. Just maybe could keep things under control so that we don't have to get
Right.
moderators involved. Because it was just interesting every time I get a notification from the few counts going at each other in the comments.
and something you have no
That
idea.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know much about Only. So
Right.
it was something. It was interesting. But I did talk to the coaches pregame, during the game, after the game about Martin Luther King, and they said they have a lot of talented players. They said
Yeah.
their wide receivers especially are very good. The problem was they weren't able to protect the quarterbacks enough
Right.
to get the
Right.
balls into their receivers' hands. Wilson was relentless in forcing pressure and mistakes. There were also a variety of mistakes, self-inflicted mistakes by MLK, pre-snap,
Right.
delay of game, things like that. They just couldn't get into,
Right.
they couldn't get any momentum.
Yeah, and credit to the Wilson defense for kind of setting up that scenario. We mentioned there's relentless pressure, but then there were instances, for example, where they make a pass and Gannon was there, like flying across the limit on that pick. Like he came out of nowhere on that, and I know he didn't get the pick, but he deflected the ball and it got picked off. Like one of those things where like and we saw it on the highlights when he came through and had the big hit after the reception to knock the ball loose. Like so things like that. When they were able to get something that would seemingly be a positive going, Wilson was there to kind of quickly turn it around.
No complaints. From
Yeah,
us.
no, I'll take it.
We'll take all of that.
Right, and it was one of those where I was like, all right, it just felt good to have a game like that. Like
Yeah, for sure.
I feel bad. I know this is, you don't have to, everybody's, they're big kids, but like, I feel bad in a sense, for MLK, just because like I don't know that they really knew what they were getting into either. Just trying to fill their schedule and things like that. And I credit them. We've talked about this, you and I. Like that would have been an easy game to be like, yeah, we're not coming after because we had agreed to a home and home.
Yeah, and we
so like we were going to go
year.
there, and so when we can't go there, like it would be very easy for them to just be like, yeah, we're not coming, because that's not going to affect their schedule moving forward at all.
No.
Like they don't have to worry about a strained relationship with us or something like that.
But I'm also sure it helps, not helps, but you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
They already had their first 3 games, if you include the scrimmage, canceled.
Oh, right.
Like postponed, canceled, eliminated.
Right.
They only got to play a week plus ago against Chester and then against us. I doubt they would want to cancel on us just because they don't want to make the trip.
Right, exactly.
They want to play the
playing.
game.
They want to play. So I give them credit for
right. Oh,
seeing
absolutely.
it through.
All the credit
and
in the world.
That's
to
tough,
them.
but like they didn't quit. They keep going, and I wish them nothing but success in there as they probably get ready for league play. Like,
well, and who knows? Maybe Coach Downs was saying, "Do we want to do another 2-year deal? Do we?"
Right.
I don't know. This is me just guessing.
Right. That's us.
Maybe that came up in conversation afterwards.
Right.
Because Wilson needs 4 non-league games. Right now, all 4 are open. We said we assume Central Dauphin will take one of those, but we know we need 3 more.
Right,
and
that doesn't count.
Or I guess
Mifflin.
I guess we need 2 more because we do have 6 league games. Mifflin. So we have 3 total. Dauphin takes 1, so we still have 2 open spots.
Right,
if
right.
Central Dauphin signs up, we have 2 left. Maybe MLK does want to do a 2-year thing, and they want us to come down next year. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Right.
You got to play games, and there's
Right.
plenty of teams that have told us thanks but no thanks.
Right. Right. So say what you want about a team coming out to play us and maybe being overmatched on that particular Friday night. But yeah, like we've said, and like it has come up when we've been trying to find teams to schedule, they say no. We've had teams that would rather not, that would rather keep their schedule open than to schedule us on that Friday night. So credit to them for seeing it through, and I hope they can kind of keep getting better each week. So
a team we won't see on the schedule next year is Manheim Central, as we wind down this 4-year series that was mandated by the Lancaster-Lebanon League, this crossover event between Section 1 and Section 2. That's going by the wayside, at least as dictated by the league, starting next year, coinciding with the Berks League merging with the LL League. So no more mandated crossover games. The way the schedule's set up, they essentially give you a kind of a tap on the shoulder or a wink, be like, hey, you in Section 2 have buys the same week, so maybe you schedule the team that has a bye, and that's what we're doing. We're scheduling Mifflin week 6. Works out that way. They were already a team we were going to add to the schedule anyways. It'll just put them at an odd place in the schedule because they're either first or last for the last 40 or 50 years, I think.
Oh,
so it'll
or
be
second.
Weird. Well, that's true. Yeah, week 0. Throw a wrench in there. Of just a few weeks back,
or a year where we weren't the same.
They were our first game, but we were their second game.
Right.
Yeah. So just wacky stuff. But Manheim Central, I would think, not going to appear on the Wilson schedule next year, but they're there this year. Week 5, we get to host. So the Barons are coming to West Lawn. Didn't go their way 2 years ago when that happened during the 2019 season. Wilson was ready for that game, winning big. I want to say it was 41-14 or something like that. It was a big victory for the Bulldogs, who were, I think, really, really upset with the way things went down in 2018 down in Manheim, where Wilson was winning for the large portion of that game. Even, I believe, at the start of the fourth quarter. I think Wilson lost the lead on the first play of the fourth quarter down in Manheim, eventually losing that game in 2018, 20-10.
Not to bury the league. That was the night we had the lights turned off while we were eating pizza in the parking lot, wasn't it? Not the parking lot of the stadium, but weren't we in the parking lot of that restaurant and they turned the lights off?
Was that there? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
You have a better memory than I do about that. Anything that happens after a loss just kind of becomes... But yeah, Manheim Central to Wilson this coming Friday night. Wilson went to Manheim last year for the last away game in this back-to-back games against the Barons, and won on Halloween in pretty convincing fashion. Wilson rushed out to a huge lead. I believe scored on the first 3 or 4 times they touched the ball. There were just a few plays, and we were up 21-0, and then I think 28-7. It just kind of steamrolled and snowballed.
Right.
And it was an interesting environment to be in last year because, well, one, we're still under the COVID restrictions. The limited attendance was not happy with Manheim Central nor the officials. The officiating in that game was on par with what we saw at Happy Valley last night. Yeah. So it doesn't matter. Wilson won. But that was just, painting the picture of the most recent games in the series. Wilson...
There were a bunch of weird... The environments were just so weird last year because, you could hear anything and everything,
Right, because the crowds were so limited.
Right.
Yeah, it's... It was an interesting game. It was delayed from Friday to Saturday. Got to play on Halloween, mid morning or late morning, whenever it was. So that's where we're at with them, and I believe I'm gonna double check in one of my stat books here. I just want to see. I think we lead the series against Manheim Central. Yes, we lead the series against Manheim Central 8-4, with the most recent victory being Wilson's last year in Manheim. So this is the 13th ever meeting between Wilson and Manheim Central. But the Barons are going to come in kind of like we did 2 years ago after we were really upset with the way things went in 2018. I think Manheim Central is going to be pretty upset with the way things went last year.
Well, and they're rolling.
Yeah.
They're rolling. We've been well documented on the show, the ups and downs of our season so far. But Manheim's had lots of ups this season so far.
Yeah, so they've played 4 games. They scrimmaged Manheim Township. Then they played the next Saturday morning because of the rain against Cumberland Valley and just smoked Cumberland Valley 35-7 in a great offensive passing effort, and the Barons' defensive effort top notch. Then next week in Manheim, the Barons welcomed in Hempfield, who just beat Exeter Friday night, 17-14. Manheim Central in week 2 beat Hempfield 14-0, shutting out the Black Knights. Then they went on the road in back-to-back weeks, destroying Susquehanna Township 60-0 before eking and squeaking one out just 2 nights ago against Perkiomen Valley at Perkiomen Valley, 43-40. So an offensive showcase there.
Sounded like a wacky game too.
The first opponent to really be able to put up points.
Well, Perk Valley was undefeated going into that game too, I think.
No, they were not.
Oh, they weren't?
No, they lost to Coatesville.
Oh, okay.
27-35 in week 2.
Oh, okay.
So Perkiomen Valley was given Manheim Central all they could handle, but Manheim Central eventually in the like you said, wacky back and forth game came out on top 43-40 on the road. And Manheim Central on the road for a 3rd week in a row coming to West Lawn. So what else do we know about Manheim Central? Well, they're coached for the 7th year by Dave Hahn, who's been on the staff at Manheim Central for 27 years. He's compiled a 60-15 record as head coach of Manheim Central. They were 3-5 last year. It was their first losing season in decades, I think since... was it the late 80s or early 90s, maybe? Or that could have been suffering back-to-back loss.
Yeah.
I forget. They're very similar to us. Any of these weird losing statistics, whether it's back-to-back games, having a losing record at this point in the season, having a losing season, it didn't happen often in Manheim. So Manheim Central, coming off of a weird year themselves, 3-5 in the COVID year in 2020. But they have a lot back. They only lost not even a full handful of guys on offense or defense. They returned 9 offensive starters, 7 defensive starters, with their biggest being their quarterback and wide receiver duo and Judd Novak and Owen Sensenig, who is getting D1 looks. And I expect Novak to probably play somewhere as well. I just don't know if it'll be at the D1 level. But Owen is the only solid wide receiver they have. Junior Brady Harbach is also a big threat, and they seem to have a nice duo in the backfield again in underclassmen Rocco Doherty and Jaden White. So I think the biggest thing impacting the game, as is a football cliche, is in the trenches, and we'll see what Manheim Central trots out there, but I believe a bunch of big underclassmen are what we're going to see, although one of their senior offensive linemen does tip the scales at a solid 6'3", 325. So a lot of beef up front for Manheim Central, all 225 or bigger. And a lot of those guys do go both ways, including Owen Sensenig and Rocco Doherty. But, I mean, they have a solid crew. You know, they were a little bit overwhelmed last year. A lot of newcomers. They were hit hard by graduation. But all those guys were, trial by fire throughout the season. They're battle tested, and now they've come to play this season, and now they faced adversity after last week at Perkiomen Valley. And like we said to start this Manheim Central preview, after the way things went against Wilson last year at their home place, I think they want to return the favor and put a little bit of a licking on the Bulldogs.
Yeah, and you add into that this could be the last time the teams see each other for the foreseeable future.
Right.
Definitely is gonna be. There's gonna be no lack of motivation for Manheim in this one. Not that they need it, but you know what I mean. Like there's plenty of things to add a little extra fuel to the fire.
They also have a strong special teams component. Their kicking is top notch, and they actually have 2 very good kickers that will rotate point after touchdown placements, field goals, and kickoffs, which they're very good at getting into the end zone. So don't expect too many return opportunities, at least in the kickoff game. We already mentioned that they started 4-0, but I fully expect them to completely steamroll their way through Section 2 of the LL. They start league play next week against Warwick, who lost to Penn Manor this past week. Then they're at Solanco, at Conestoga Valley before finishing back-to-back home games against Elizabethtown and Cocalico. I guess Cocalico is probably the biggest one standing in their way, but Cocalico is not as strong as they had been over the last few years either. And if Manheim Central plays like they did the first 4 weeks, I'd expect their last 5 to go pretty well for them. So we may or may not be their biggest test left on their regular season schedule. I mean, hopefully we are. I would like to make it a point that they remember playing Wilson this year.
Yeah, that would be good.
So, yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything else to add about Manheim Central?
No, I mean, it's going to be a big game, like for a non-league game between two teams in the league. It's definitely one of those where like there's nothing like hidden here. Like both teams, like they know. I wouldn't go as far to call it a rivalry, just because it's a big game doesn't mean it's a rivalry. You know what I mean? But like it's definitely one of those games that gets marked on a lot of calendars, from year to year. And so, they're going to want to have their shot at Wilson, like everyone does, but they're going to want to have their shot. And, when they're sitting there at 4-0 and some of the scores they've put up, like they're definitely going to be ready to maybe right what they perceive as wrongs, the last couple of years.
So I did find some information courtesy of Lancaster newspapers. Jeff Reiner, who always does a fantastic job covering the Lancaster-Lebanon League teams, and he has some information on Manheim Central. So last year when they went 3-5, it was the Barons' first losing season since 1971. And it was also the first time they lost 4 games in a row since 1977. Interesting that those don't coincide.
Yeah.
That they had lost 4 games in a row in 1977, but still finished with a winning record. Like Wilson, Manheim Central did miss the District 3 playoffs last year. And for Manheim Central, it was the first time in nearly 3 decades. 29 years, the last time Manheim Central didn't make the District 3 playoffs. And the District 3 playoffs, I believe, began in 1982, so they might have made it every year since the second year, I think. Does that make sense? Is that right? Something like that? I'm not sure. No, I guess they're pushing 40 years, so that would have been sometimes in the 90s. I guess they're streaked back to the 1990s. For some reason, my brain always thinks that it's like 2011 instead of 2021.
Yeah,
it's like a decade that I feel lost somehow. I don't know. But yeah,
because we're getting old. To wrap around the earlier in the show, like it was because we're getting old.
But like we said, Jeff says the same thing, that Manheim Central has so many guys back. They now have a veteran offensive line, a veteran quarterback, weapons in the passing game. 4 of their offensive linemen returned from last year. Quarterback's back. Big wide receiver is back. And their defense, up until the game against Perkiomen Valley last week, had allowed 1 touchdown?
Yeah, I think
before that, and that who
7,
knows?
7 points through 3 games.
To Cumberland Valley. 7 points in their first 3 games, and that could have been in garbage time at the end.
Yeah.
So they were flying around. So Manheim Central is not going to be an easy out, and they're making things very, very difficult for all the teams they're playing. And Wilson is up this week on their schedule. So hopefully the Bulldogs can rise to the occasion and make it a fun and exciting game at Gurski Stadium this Friday night in West Lawn for a 7 o'clock kickoff with Manheim Central. Again, 13th ever meeting between the two big-time District 3 programs. Outside of these two, I think probably the only other ones that rival them with long-term success, Cumberland Valley, who's hit a little bit of a valley in their success ever since really we beat them in the district final in 2016. I think they've struggled. They've gone through a coaching change, and obviously Central Dauphin also very strong.
Have they gone through 2 coaching changes since then?
I thought it was just 1, but I could be incorrect. I feel like the guy that they didn't bring back was it before last year or before the 2019 season, was the gentleman who was coaching them when we beat them.
Okay. I see.
think.
I thought maybe that was the last year of
No.
the previous game.
No, I don't think
Okay.
so.
Okay.
I think I can't recall his name off the top of my head, but Coach Oswalt is there, who had been at Central York
Right.
previously, but Coach Oswalt played at Cumberland Valley, so
Right,
it was
right.
a kind of a homecoming for him. But they've been starting to make some noise. So Cumberland Valley is getting better through as the season goes on. Despite that opening week loss to Manheim Central 35-7, Cumberland Valley has rebounded. I believe they've evened their record to 2-2 with 2 nice wins the last 2 weeks. But I don't want to be talking about playoffs after week 4, looking ahead to week 5. But soon enough, those District 3 power ratings are going to really start to matter.
Yeah.
But we know that it takes the full 10 weeks to establish who the top 8 teams will be. And as we've seen in years past, just because you lost a team doesn't mean you're not gonna end up in front of them.
Right.
Especially if those records are very similar at the end of the year. But yes, 8 spots up for grabs in the District 3 6A playoffs this year. And those games start the first Friday in November. But a lot of regular season football to go yet for the Bulldogs starting this week against Manheim Central. All right, Justin. You want to let us know what the atmosphere was like at the Whiteout last night?
It was pretty cool. It was loud. It's a great game.
More importantly, what did Austin think?
He was impressed. I didn't know how he'd do. It was not his first Penn State game. It was his first big Penn State game. Yeah, he handled it like a champ. I was tired today, and you could tell as the day went on he was a little worn down. But yeah, he handled it really well. It was just a cool atmosphere. It's a cool game, a fun game. Honestly, I was kind of glad that. Well, obviously, I was glad we were there, but some of the things that were maybe a little more obvious when you were watching TV weren't quite as obvious when you were there in person, and so that was probably a good thing for my blood pressure and things like that. So
I'm surprised you have a voice to even do this show tonight.
Yeah, I feel like it sounds a little different today, but
it was gravelly.
Right. Was pretty good. I could use some halls, but
yeah, what's going on with that? Are they going to mail them to you?
I don't know.
I mean, Coach Franklin was working on that.
Right, yeah, we'll see. But yeah, it was cool. It was just fun. It was a great game. Yeah, you can't beat it. You can't beat it.
For sure.
Right. So
it's a great moment, great experience.
It's cool. And one of the things, it was one of those games where I'm like, Sean Clifford's having a really good game. And you're thinking it during the game. And then you see the stats, you're like, 28 of 32.
That's a great
wow.
game. Yeah. Great game.
Wow. And 12 for 12 in the second half.
Hey, you can't get any better than that.
And Jahan Dotson, I thought, how one of the writers talked about this, you see his stats in it, I think it was 9 catches for 89 yards or something like that. But
one of them a touchdown.
They were all big catches. They were all key catches at key times.
And he made
and he completed a pass for 30 yards.
That's true. Yeah. He made that one guy. He looked like a human joystick. Just stopping on a dime, making a guy miss.
I saw this was last week. Somebody said, he's becoming a mix of some of the last few receivers that have come out of Penn State. He's becoming
KJ Hamler and Chris Godwin.
Right, he's kind of a hybrid of Deshaun, KJ, and Godwin. And it's funny because he was kind of I know he had some interest in basketball, and Wilson played against him when he was at Nazareth.
Yeah.
And then Penn State came onto the scene and offered him, and yeah, that has worked out well. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, during the post game when they're singing, when they were singing about singing the alma mater, Grayson was front and center, of that what they had framed on the video screen, and I'm I'm like there, and I'm like, oh, Grayson! Like
I know him
from like 60 rows away. But
Right.
like, you know, with it, and here's the thing, like after the game, like the student section like didn't leave.
Yeah.
Like they didn't storm the field or
Well-
anything, but like they were just there. Like everybody was there. Everybody was
So-
like committed to being there. It was cool.
back
It was
in
cool.
my day when the whiteout
You had
started.
to walk barefoot uphill to the stadium both
See,
directions.
I was at the first ever
Yes,
whiteout.
you were.
I was at the
Yes, you
second
were.
ever whiteout. That was the one against Ohio State. So I was then, I believe they did one I think they did one every year, close to it. I feel like I would have been there my senior year. Oh, that was against Michigan, against Chad,
Yeah.
which we lost. So yes, I was at all three whiteouts. I guess I technically was 1 and 2 because I'm pretty sure they lost that first one.
Right.
Probably was against Ohio State. I would guess. We also did that Code Blue. There was the two competing things while I was a student: Code Blue and Whiteout. But then it really exploded in 2005, my junior year, against Ohio State. Which they lead with every time there's a whiteout
Right.
thing. That's the one they picture. You can picture Troy Smith getting hit by
Getting
Tom Ali.
demolished.
But yeah, so to bring this to Wilson, besides the Chad Henne mention that I just said, and I believe the third whiteout ever featured Chad Henne from Michigan beating Penn State in the fall of 2006. Did you see before the game any of the Wilson guys when you walked in? Did you see the players walk in?
So I did not see them walk in. We
Okay.
hadn't gone back up that way yet.
Because I was looking for them during the game, but
So during and to be honest, it was the sidelines were so crowded with recruits and stuff yesterday. It was really hard to like pick out people. But
it's too bad they were all wearing the same color. So
Right. I did see, Caleb like down on the field. I saw Grayson down on the field. I kept looking for Weller. I couldn't like pick him out, but like he very easy. I'm telling you, it was crazy
madness.
Yeah.
Madness.
in a good way.
Yeah, in all the good ways. So, but that's it, I think, for us this evening for episode 9 of the Bulldog Hour 7th season. Again, Justin and I will be back next Sunday, September 26th, to recap Game 5 against Manheim Central and preview Game 6 at Penn Manor, as the Bulldogs will be opening play in Section 1 of the Lancaster-Lebanon League. And Penn Manor could be a sneaky one, as I just mentioned. They beat Warwick this past week.
Yeah.
So, not sure what we're going to get from the comments, and we got to go to Millersville for that one. And that just means one thing, Justin.
Sugar Bowl.
Sugar Bowl. All right. For Justin Raffoff, I'm Joe Mays. Until next time, remember, go Bulldogs.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Bulldog Hour. Want more Wilson football? Follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. Or visit www.bulldoghour.com. The Bulldog Hour is a featured program on jmnjrradio.com.